Welcome to the show. This is Match B2B Insights. I'm Benny Fluman, here with Brenda and Brian Newman. This is episode 1 of a 6-part series on smart negotiation management. Today, finding the real decision maker inside the organization. Coming next, culture, body language, internal politics, industry differences, and consensus. So let's go straight at it. Access is not authority.
And that sounds obvious until you're in the meeting with the senior title, the nice budget language, the enthusiasm, and everybody relaxes too early.
I'd actually push it one step further. In a lot of deals, the loudest executive isn't just not always the buyer. They're sometimes a distraction. The person talking 60% of the time may be the least dangerous person in the room.
Exactly. People confuse visibility with control. They got the meeting, so they think they found the authority. No, they found an entry point.
Give me a concrete one.
Cybersecurity. Vendor sells hard into the CISO. Strong pain, clear threat narrative, demos go well. The CISO says, "We need this now." Sounds done. Then finance blocks it. Why? Because the risk, from finance's view, is budgetary concentration, not breach exposure, budget exposure. Same deal, 2 risk models.
And that budgetary concentration phrase matters. I've seen teams hear urgency from security and assume urgency travels across the company. It doesn't. Finance asks, is this replacing an existing tool, adding headcount, increasing annual commitment, creating vendor dependency? Different scoreboard.
So the CISO owns the problem, but finance owns the pain of saying yes.
That's it.
Here's another one. AI platform gets a department head excited. Pilot goes well, usage looks promising, everybody says, let's scale. Then procurement forces a restart because the approval chain was never mapped. Data handling, vendor review, security questionnaire, indemnity language, suddenly the deal goes backwards.
The word restart is brutal there because it feels like closing, and it's actually requalification.
Yes, and that's where I disagree with founders who say procurement is a late-stage issue. No. In enterprise AI, procurement can be an early-stage power center hiding in late-stage clothing.
I agree with the conclusion, not the framing. Procurement usually isn't strategic authority, it's process authority. But if process can stop the deal, then practically speaking, it behaves like authority.
That's a useful distinction. Strategic yes versus procedural yes.
Right. Last example, medtech. Sale looks ready, clinician is positive, technical review is fine. Then, hospital administration steps in with one question. Who carries implementation risk? Training, downtime, integration, liability, handoff. If nobody answered that early, the deal stalls. Not because the product failed, because accountability was unclear.
And implementation risk is the phrase I'd underline. In hospitals, the person who loves the outcome is often not the person who absorbs the disruption.
So episode 1 rule is pretty simple. The person saying yes to you may not be the person allowed to say yes for the business.
The next mistake is thinking the org chart tells you the truth. It doesn't. The real company universe is political, not formal.
I'm going to push back there. In some structured enterprises, especially regulated ones, the process is formal. Titles and approval lanes do matter a lot.
They matter, yes. They just don't explain enough. Formal structure tells you who is supposed to approve. Political structure tells you who can delay, redirect, or quietly kill momentum.
And that's where people need a clean map. Economic buyer, technical buyer, legal, finance, sponsor, blocker, hidden veto point. If you can't name those 7, you're not negotiating. You're hoping.
Let's slow that down. Economic buyer is who owns the money. Technical buyer is who has to believe it works. Legal and finance are obvious. Sponsor is your internal champion. Blocker is the person actively or passively resisting. And hidden veto point is the one nobody mentions until the end.
Exactly. And the hidden veto point is where deals die politely.
Public fintech is the clean example. On paper, commercial leadership looks powerful. In reality, legal and compliance often have more power than their titles suggest. Not because they want the deal less, because regulatory exposure outweighs enthusiasm.
Regulatory exposure outweighs enthusiasm. That's the whole sector in one line. A VP can love your platform, but one compliance objection can freeze everything.
Private manufacturing looks different. Founder appears decisive. Everyone says, if the founder likes it, we're in. Maybe. But the operations lead may still be the real gatekeeper because implementation lands on that team. If ops says this disrupts throughput, the founder suddenly becomes very cautious.
I've seen that exact thing. Founder says yes in the room, operations says not this quarter. And guess what? Yes becomes circle back in 6 months.
And consulting is another trap. The partner who introduced the opportunity feels senior, sounds senior, probably is senior, but they may not control budget, scope approval, or final signature. They control access, not commitment.
Which brings us back to the thesis. Access is not authority. And Brenda, your pushback was fair. Formal structure matters. But negotiation management fails when people stop at the formal layer and never map the political one underneath.
The first clue is not title, it's who controls next steps. Who sets the second meeting? Who decides who joins? Who changes the agenda without asking? That person matters.
And I'd add 3 softer signals: silence, calendar control, and follow-up behavior. Sometimes the most important person says almost nothing. Sometimes they never touch the deck, but everybody waits for their note afterward.
Defense sector is perfect here. You'll get a buyer who speaks maybe twice in a 45-minute call. Very little reaction, almost no warmth. Then the meeting ends, and nobody moves until that person sends the summary note. If the room waits for one email, that email holder has gravity.
That one email clue is gold. People overread charisma and underread workflow. Workflow tells the truth.
Medical device is similar. The clinician can be the loudest by far. Use case, outcomes, urgency, all of it. But the final decision often tracks with operations or finance because they're measuring staffing, rollout burden, reimbursement pressure, whatever the internal constraint is.
Yes, and this is where teams misdiagnose support. They say, the doctor loves us. Fine. Does the business love the change required to adopt you?
AI infrastructure gives another strong clue. The person arranging the second meeting is often more important than the one speaking most in the first. If someone quietly pulls in security, data, architecture, procurement, that person is shaping the decision architecture.
Decision architecture is a great phrase because that's what's happening. They're not just attending, they're constructing the path to yes or to no.
And let's be honest, if you still don't know who owns the final risk after meeting 2, that's not ambiguity, that's bad qualification.
I mostly agree. I'd soften one part. In some enterprise deals, you won't get the full map by meeting 2, but you should know where authority is likely clustering: budget, implementation, compliance, or executive sponsorship.
So maybe the practical test is this: not who likes us, but who can change the process tomorrow. If one person can add stakeholders, pause legal, or pull budget review forward, that's your signal.
Exactly. Negotiation starts long before pricing. It starts the moment you decide who actually matters. And if you get that wrong, every strong meeting after that is built on borrowed confidence.
That's a good place to leave it.
Next one gets interesting.
See you in episode 2.